We're here now? Okay. Well, in this video, I want to touch base on what has to happen during the pre-construction phase for us to be able to be successful, for us to manage risk, and for us to be setting execution for success. The way I see it is that during the estimating, sorry, during the pre-con phase, which encompasses estimating, getting the information, all the stuff that happens before construction. Under that scenario, we want to make sure that we do a deep dive into the contract so that we can hand hand over execution with a package that it's sets them up for success. In other words, they're going to be successful in the proportion that the estimating team prepares that team to be successful. Okay. As long as I remember, people fight between execution and estimating. But as leaders, we want to avoid that from happening. We want to evaluate the estimating process, the procurement process, and the execution process kind of independently and have KPIs for each one of them. If estimating does a, let's say, perfect homework and creates a budget that encompasses everything, created all the RFIs, and if there was no mistake, technically speaking, now it's about planning and executing what's in the contract and bringing home the profit, right? So that's what boils down to. But during the pre-construction process also, it's not only about the estimate, but it's also about setting themselves to identify risk and hand over that information to execution so they don't have to start analyzing risk from scratch. Having said that, pre-construction is not only about getting a job and getting a backlog. It's about how you get it. Getting a job not to make money from the beginning, there's nothing execution can do if the project doesn't have profits. There's nothing execution can do if we missed a bunch of stuff during the estimating process. So estimators are accountable. Unfortunately, when the mistake is done at that stage and it's huge and there's nothing, it's this, you almost have to be a magician and you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So here's the recommendation. It's all about clarity from the beginning. Clarity and gaining understanding, deep understanding of the contract. What's required in the contract? Because the execution team is supposed to follow the contract. That means contract means drawings, specs, addendums, changes during the estimating process, not the permit. Permit is supposed to be according to what was published, but at least in the pre-construction phase, you want to account for the entire anything that could cost money, anything that could cost risk, and anything that could cost time. And you want to define that plan. So the plan for the estimating team is to give, I would say, the outcome. It give our team that is out there fighting for us and getting it done, just have them focus on here's what you're supposed to do. Give them a binder. These are the drawings, these are the specs, this is what's included, this is the scope, and this is the homework we did that is so detailed that you barely have to think now. Pre-construction, it's not just about winning contract, like I said. It's about doing it right? Defining so well the scope that they understand everything about the job. Let's say a high percentage. They have studied the risk. They have studied the risk. They have an idea on what the risk could look like, what it represents, what's a low margin of risk, medium margin of risk, high risk, and they have associated a dollar value to that risk. And because they understand the risk, they understand the scope, you understand the time, how is it going to be done, and you also understand the team that you put together, that you selected to get this done, and why they are the best team to get this project done, which means internally in your company, but it also means externally, the vendors, the suppliers, the subs. Why is this the best team to score an A? And how are they going to do it? So that's defined in the pre-construction process. You gain deep understanding of the project scope and the contract. You plan to mitigate the risk. You find ways to optimize the schedule, meaning, how can I finish earlier? Because you can make money if you finish earlier. But you also, if nothing else, if you prepare to finish earlier, now you're developing a cushion that can help you offset risk. And that's important. So, how can you finish earlier? How can the team finish earlier? You create a pool planning in that stage. Let's study this contract so well, meaning specs, drawings, all that is pertaining to that project, and how can we finish earlier? But not only you as a contributor, as a contractor, but you want to pick everybody's brain. How do you see it? How can we finish earlier? You also want to strategize and use this effort to make better decisions. So at the end of the day, you are planning to increase your opportunities to be profitable, which means reducing costs, reducing time, and expediting the execution process without sacrificing safety, without compromising safety, and without compromising quality. None of them you want to compromise, right? You don't want to give more quality than it's required in the contract. So you want to make sure, if you want to protect your bottom line, that you are delivering according to the contract. The contract is, I want to make your Bible, your recipe to success. If the contract that the client designed has failures, has issues, you want to now identify them and ask questions about it. But the other thing that you want to do in the estimating process is question your assumptions. Be mindful of what are you assuming that is super positive, that you can do this. I've seen it. We're contractors, we're very positive. We have to be. So question your assumptions, because the assumptions many times is really what gets us in trouble. So you're going to plan for a successful execution. You're going to mitigate risk and you're going to optimize profits. That's your profits. That's your outcome. So, in that process, number one, we're going to gain clarity of the contract, the risk. We're going to identify it. We're going to create a plan. We're going to understand what that plan looks like in terms of cost, in terms of time, in terms of resources, in terms of risk. That's clarity. Clarity is power. Clarity means that you're taking time to plan, you're taking time to understand what you're supposed to be doing, what this other entity is supposed to be doing, and the owner is supposed to be doing. You have crystal clarity. And for that, you want to give yourself the time that you and your team requires to get it done. It's also an opportunity for your team to become more efficient, right? So there's no going out around what's required in the contract. That's kind of fixed. But what you can do is what you can control. you can optimize your efficiency, you can optimize your team, you can create more clarity in your company, you can create dashboards, you can focus on hiring the right people and put them in the right seat. Make your team more efficient because there's things in the contract that will not be able to be modified. The other thing that, of course, you have heard me talk about this before, if you got yourself into a bad contract, there's very little anybody can do. So that is one area that at this point you could determine during the estimating process too much risk. This is above and beyond what we can handle. I'm assuming this contract is going to go this way, but I'm reading it and there's bad faith here. I read it. I'm also interviewing other contractors, other people that have done work for this entity, and they haven't had a good time. So we need to do our homework as far as risk before we start giving prices and getting projects. A good source to ask about clients is your bonding agent. Get your bonding agent to tell you which are the clients that are good and which are not, because they know. They do that homework. They understand which clients are really bad, 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 bad. Don't go with these clients. It's not a good idea. So let's use our resources, our people, our consultants, the right way. Let's pick their brain. Besides gaining clarity, which is already a huge chunk, we have to have a bucket for optimization. In optimization, we define our outcomes: the cost, the time, the risk. What does this budget should look like? How much my profit should look like? What's the opportunity in terms of finishing earlier the project? You always make money if you finish earlier. It always costs you more to delay something that is in your control. So plan to finish ahead of time. Just create that so that you can get your brain and your team to start thinking of opportunities on to finish earlier, regardless of what happens. Regardless, because you're in a contract, and if you start that homework earlier, most likely you will be more successful than if you don't even think about finishing earlier. um Questioning your assumptions. You want to optimize what can go wrong. In other words, you don't want things going wrong, but asking to everyone, putting yourself in the position, if this goes wrong, what happened that shouldn't have happened? Sorry. If this go wrong, what happened that should not have happened? You know, that's a good question. What should not happen here? And start thinking about it. And don't be afraid of maybe perhaps the answer in the end is I shouldn't do this job. But perhaps the question should be, if I were to be successful, what does that look like? And how can we make it happen? That puts you in a proactive approach, and it's probably that if you have to get it done, you'll find a way. What kind of mindset do you have to have in order to finish earlier, and in order to finish on time and on budget? What kind of mindset, what kind of identity do we need to have? What kind of team do we need to have? Those are questions that are part of a planning process, and a part of a clarity process that so many times we don't even ask ourselves. So defining that for everyone in the team, from every stakeholder, whether it's the owner side, the architects, everyone, we're supposed to finish by this day, the budget is this, and the team, what are the expectations for everyone in the team? What are the outcomes that everybody has individually or as a group? Is that clear? Do we understand that? And find ways to optimize it. To optimize it, you need clarity, but you also need to measure. So constant measuring and sharing the information, it's important. Number three bucket that you want to pay attention to is to build a plan to finish on time and on budget. So this is all about finishing on time and on budget. You know, clients hire us to finish on time and on budget. Everybody wants a project finished on time and on budget, regardless of what happens. Nobody wants to hear that we're not finishing on time or on budget because I don't know, the world fell apart. Nobody wants to hear that. Why? Because it costs money and it hits them where it hurts them. And it hits us too where it hurts us in the pocket. The liability, the risk that we unfortunately is transferred to us immediately. So being able to build a plan to finish on time and a budget, right? You of course you want three prices that can justify a scope of work by an electrician, for example. You have you want three prices or more for everything. That's gonna do some risk mitigation. You want to identify what's in the critical path. What's in the critical path? What so that you can have that as a base. And if the critical path is good, then find out what's the second critical path. That way you can have a plan A and plan B and plan C because things change in a contract. Things change, stuff happens. And you want to select the team that can make it happen. During that process, you want to have a very close understanding on how your budget is doing. How's the budget in comparison to the schedule? These things are the ones that you know early on before you're in the contract and that you can control. The more definition you have on that, the better of the team execution team is to be successful. Minded that in a contract, we know that changes are part of the process, unfortunately, and they have to handle that process. What changes in the contract during the execution process? We don't want that, and it happens. That creates additional work for our team because nobody really, I think, estimates or budgets a ton of money to process change orders. That should be paid by the contract. But just the handling of it until it's paid creates an additional burden, an additional impact to the project and the team. So make them as successful as you can. Do your part, do your work in the pre-construction side of the house, and your team in execution should be more successful. And then measure, right? Measure how successful were they, how account make them accountable, but measure, develop KPIs to define what the success in this team looks like, and then adjust as frequently as it can. What else do I have here for you? Look, construction is a very risky business, as we know. The more we plan, the more clarity we give, the better off we are. There's no doubt that having a great team, the right team, it's crucial. Like we've talked in the past, and you're gonna see it in the next chapter of the book, scaling beyond the blueprints, where we're gonna dive deeper into the pre-construction side of it. This is just an intro to get you excited about what you're about to learn and to prepare you or give you, hopefully inspire you to create better process, to document better, to create KPIs that can give you a gauge. Are we doing, when we're successful, what's happened that should have happened? And when we're not successful in estimating what happened that should not have happened. And at the end, that should pay off in in the future because that's your guide to creating systems. Unfortunately, many times we learn this the hard way, and that happened to me. We many times trust the team we have is doing the work that we need them to do. But unfortunately, you know, we don't know what we don't know. And having a way to manage expectations, to trust but verify, having a way to make people accountable, make ourselves accountable. We're always accountable as business owners because when it doesn't work, we pay the price. The price is really money, right? We lose money. We choose the wrong contract, we lose money. We choose the wrong team, we lose money. We choose the wrong, we don't understand the risk, right? We lose money. The economy goes down, we lose. I mean, we are always at risk. So the best advice that I have for you is that find a way to develop a team that that you can that becomes a champion in your company. Find a way that creating a culture of planning, clear accountability, gaining clarity and excitement. It doesn't matter how fast you're going to grow. If you are not developing systems, it's better not to grow fast. So find a way to invest your time in creating the roadmap, in creating the yellow brick road. Find a way to identify risk, not to scare you, but to prepare you. And be really good and committed at making money. Are you here to make money? This is really a question that took me a long time, unfortunately, to gain clarity on. It's stupid, right? Yeah, I'm supposed to make money here. But a lot of times we entrepreneurs are more in love with the mission that we have and the passion for what we do that the other part of it, which is the profitability. But when we gain clarity of that is the mission, you help people along the way without sacrificing profitability because then you're sacrificing the company. You find ways to hire people that can be aligned with that mission. You when you make money, you serve your clients better, etc., etc., etc. So I hope this serves you right. I promise you we're going to develop this even more, even further, these topics, and I would love to see what you think about it. Subscribe to the channel and let me know your thoughts about the book Scaling Beyond the Blueprints. And you know what, I promise you I'm going to do this content in Spanish because the book I wrote it in Spanish for contractors that don't speak English. There's a lot of them, but they do a great job. And I really wanted to give them tools and instruments to be more successful in this business that they're in and make more money. It's called Más allá de los planos. Más allá de los planos. So my intention is to record all these videos for every chapter in Spanish as well, so you can have more information. And I'm grateful that you're here. Let me know how can I help you. Ask me questions. We read the questions and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel because this is how we're going to know if we are making an impact for you. How can we elevate together our industry? So subscribe to the channel because it helps our industry as well. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great weekend.